Hello, everybody. Hello, Yang Gang. How's it going? I am Annette Peacemaker, and we are live from YGRL, the Yang Gang Report Live on Facebook. And we are also streaming live on YouTube at Annette the Peacemaker. And we have some special guests with us today. And we're going to be talking a lot about UBI and the Humanity Forward projects. And I believe both of our guests are from Texas. So we're going to be focusing a lot on Texas. And with that, I am going to introduce my Yang Gang sister, Faye, the Lone Star Warrior. And she's going to introduce our guests and let everybody know what all we're going to be talking about.
Okay. Conrad, are you from Texas? I wasn't aware of.
No, I live in New York, raised in Colorado, but I was in Texas like 2 days ago. So
you were just here? No way.
We're on the road for the Bootstraps project, so we're doing our final interviews. We can talk about that later. But I was just in San Antonio, and now I'm in New Mexico. Yeah.
That's cool. So where do you go home to? You'd go back home to New York when you're done with that?
Yeah, and we'd been in New York City, but now I'm sort of, as part of the pandemic, what it meant for us is we were moving to upstate New York. So I'm a New Yorker now, putting down a little bit of roots.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear more about the Bootstraps project soon, but let me also introduce Hexel Colorado, I am Hexel's biggest fan, which I tell him every time I see him, and he is sort of the organizer that's holding it all down here in Texas. He's heading up the Humanity Forward Texas, and it's been my pleasure to be able to work with him on working on the mission and vision statement for going forward. Hexel, do you want to tell us more about Humanity Forward Texas and what's happening?
Hi, Faye. Thank you for the great introduction. I don't know if you saw the panic in my eyes because, like, just as you started introducing me, my headphones stopped working.
Well, I said stuff that you don't want anybody to know, so don't worry about it.
My name is Hexel Colorado. I'm not from Colorado. I was born and raised here in Dallas, Texas. And for the last few months, I've been organizing the Humanity Forward Texas group. As Faye said, we just finished a special committee writing our mission and vision statement. It was a month-long process, over 115 comments back and forth to get it just right. And I'm very proud of what we came up with. So if you want to see what we came up with and what our committee of 12 people put together after a long deliberative and insightful and wonderful process, be sure to follow us on social media, Humanity Forward Texas on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And I also encourage you to visit humanityforwardtexas.org to see, our blog as well as everything else that we're up to. I don't know if we want to give the whole enchilada of everything Humanity Forward Texas, but I've been involved with the Yang Gang since March of last year when I heard about Andrew Yang on. Actually, I don't follow Fox News, but I have like a guilty pleasure of watching Fox News clips on YouTube. And I remember watching him go on Fox News and actually having a civil conversation with people who would normally be very averse to the type of things he stands for. That's what originally turned me on. And since then, I've been organizing DFW for Yang every week, every month since that. Since I got hooked back in March of last year, and I just had the pleasure of doing coffee socials and phone banking parties and sign walking. I had the privilege of hosting Andrew Yang for a fundraiser rally in Dallas back in December. We've had 1,100 people in Texas come to see Andrew Yang in person. And so, I've just been very blessed with the opportunity to kind of be part of that campaign. And I just feel very lucky to be able to be part of this movement. And so it's been very enriching for me, and I hope that this larger movement and everybody involved and attached to it can just keep that flame alive.
Okay, if Annette would share the Humanity Forward Texas website for us, it's humanityforwardtexas.org. And if you come here, you will be able to sign up for the newsletter. You can join the movement and become a volunteer. I guarantee you, if you are doing stuff with Hexel, that things are going to move and progress because he is a great organizer. Annette, can you hear me? Are we able to get the website up? Okay.
Sir. I'm running it down below, humanityforwardtexas.org.
That's correct. And you can go to humanityforwardtexas.org.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, and then you have options there. You can sign up for the newsletter. Yeah, there it is. So you can sign up for the newsletter, and all you need to do is put your email, or if you want to be more involved and actually like participate in organizing and leading, we need as many people as we can, and so you can click join the movement. And we try to keep our blog updated regularly with everything that's going on. The minutes from our last board meeting, for example, are there on the blog. And we'll be uploading the second episode of Weekly Roundup in the next few days here. I don't know. I know we're not living up to the weekly part of the name because we have been kind of refining our video output process to kind of get these out faster. So it's been a month since our last weekly episode, but it's going to come out this week. So watch out. If you're watching this, expect a new episode within the next few days because there's a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, I mean, I see that you're working on Donna Imam's campaign down here. Is this like the big push right now in Texas?
Yes, it is. So Texas is really excited about Donna Imam. She's running for Texas Congressional District, U.S. Congressional District 31, which is Bell County, Williamson County, and the northern part of Austin. And there's a number of reasons why we're really excited about Donna. For those who are familiar with her campaign, she was endorsed by Humanity Forward. She was personally endorsed by Andrew Yang. And she's actually been, Yang Gang for a long time. She met Andrew when he came to South by Southwest in 2019, last year, back when
in Austin.
Yeah, in Austin. So just when he was just starting to, to blow up, and she's been a supporter of basic income for a long time. So for one, there's a number of reasons she's great. Number one, she's legit Yang Gang, right? Like she is one of us. She supports universal basic income. She supports ranked choice voting. She supports, healthcare for all. And so there's that. And the other side of it is that she has a legit chance of winning because the incumbent, John Carter, who's held on to the seat for I think the last 18 years, the last re-election he faced was in 2018 against MJ Hagar, who is now the Democratic candidate for Senate. And he held on to the seat by less than 3%, so 2.8%. So when you look at how close it already was to flipping for the first time, you look at the political climate we have now, and finally the nail in the coffin, the fact that we have the Yang Gang and Humanity Forward behind Donna, that the odds are so in our favor if we put in the work. She's appeared in multiple live streams. She appeared in a live stream with Andrew Yang and all the volunteers, and she also appeared in a live stream with Andrew and Beto O'Rourke. So because she won her primary by a landslide, it wasn't even close, 13%, thousands of votes above her primary opponent. It was a great campaign. She has a really strong mandate behind her. And the final thing I'll say, for her and is really her implications for the movement. Hopefully this doesn't come off the wrong way, but I think everyone who hears it knows what we're saying. Andrew Yang said that Donna could be the AOC for Yang Gang, the AOC for our movement, where if she wins, and she could be the face and the bellwether of putting legislation, humanity forward legislation on the U.S. Congress floor. So this is really significant. And I think personally, if this can come out of Texas, a state that has long been taken for granted as red, I'm not about partisan politics. It's not about being blue or about being red, but it's the fact that real change and real upset of precedent can come out of Texas, then I think we can set an example for the rest of the country that hey, whatever assumptions you've had before. Like, this is our chance to upset the establishment. So those are all the reasons I'm really excited about Donna. And so we have a website.
I wanted to let people know that even if you are not in Texas, you got to be paying attention to Texas right now, because we have a real chance of, you know, flipping some seats and doing some major changes here. And if we go blue this year, you know, Donald Trump cannot win without Texas. So this is it. This is it. You know, if this is a battleground state, if your state is not a battleground and is not, you know, pushing the needle right now, come to Texas and help us out, because we can use all of your energy, and it will be actually fruitful.
Is there, I mean, people coming to Texas might be harder right now, but is there a lot they can do online or with phone banking?
Absolutely. So the first thing is, number one is donate. So she's on the record. Like, she said it live in front of thousands of volunteers, both inside and outside of Yang Gang. If she can get $1 million, right? Because she's right now, look, we look at the math, we look at the numbers. Right now, it just comes down to outreach and money, right? Because the incumbent has, you know, millions of dollars already in this coffer. But Donna's made this personal promise that if we can get her $1 million, she will win. She's got MJ Hagar, who's already ran this race before, back in 2018, exact same race back in 2018. Right? She's got all the experience of the establishment, Democrats, plus the Yang Gang, who are from all over the board, right? So the biggest thing right now is money. So what's happening right now is on September 1st, we're doing it Yang Gang style. We have a money bomb on September 1st. And what I highly recommend people do is go to donnamoneybomb.com and make their pledge on that website for how much they'll give, whether it's $5, $10, $25. And then if you put your email and number on that website, it'll do two things. One, will help, you know, bump the goal, so we can see, like, okay, more people are pledging. We can see this kind of money bomb start to grow and grow. And then also, by putting your information in there, we can send you a reminder via email and text saying, hey, Money Bomb Day's here. It's time to show Donna our support. And so that's the biggest way, is to donate to her campaign. And the second big thing, if you don't live in Texas, is to phone bank for her. You go to votefordonna.com, you click volunteer, you sign up on that website, and someone from her campaign will reach out to you to get involved in phone banking. Because, you know, these congressional races, they come down to just, you know, a few thousand votes. And I know that there's at least 16,000 in the state of Texas alone. There were 16,000 volunteers for Yang. And so, you know, if we can tap into that larger network of Yang people, or Yang or not, right? Humanity forward. If you believe in pushing humanity forward, then we can really get that 2.8%. That's in just 2 small districts. That's all we're asking.
Yep. And I mean, there are a lot more candidates here in Texas. I'm going to make a quick plea for my local East Texan, who is Carolyn Salter. She's running for Texas 5 in the House. She's going up against a super racist Lance Gooden, who is Republican incumbent. And all he just keeps, you know, doing stuff that I hate. So I'm very happy to support my local Democrats. And even if they're not able to win their race necessarily, the fact that they're running means that they have an office, right, which is going to be supporting Biden as well. And so in order for Biden to win Texas, we need to give money to the people who are opening these offices and keeping that going. It's simultaneous. It's together at the same time. So while Carolyn is, you know, trying to speak for herself, she's also going to be helping people elect Joe Biden. And so that's like, if you want to support Joe Biden in the rural areas of Texas, we got to look out, you know, for all of the rural candidates. All right. So today we get to do something that we don't usually get to do, which is get a little bit away from just plain, you know, like current events, and actually talk a little more about how UBI, you know, is important to us at this moment, and for the, you know, for all of eternity. I mean, for all the future, to build that better future. I think we're united under the United Basic Income, and we're very lucky to have Conrad with us today. And he has been how long have you been working on UBI? Was it prior to this Yang Gang experience?
Yes, a little bit. I think I read the first article that kind of got me inspired by it, by the idea, in 2016 at some point. And hold on one sec. Yeah, 2016, I read my first article, and I just happened to be in a place where my now wife, then girlfriend, Dea, was getting ready to work on a new documentary project. And it gave me an avenue. She asked me if I would produce her next project, and it gave me an avenue to actually do something with this idea. You know, before I might have just been like, hell yeah, this is a great idea. And I would have been gang and supportive. And then through who she is and what she's doing, I got to get a lot more involved. Oh,
that's interesting. So did you say your girlfriend?
Yeah, so my girlfriend, but at the time is now my wife. Her name's Dea Schlossberg, and she's a documentary filmmaker. She does environmental and social justice type films. If you want to see something she's done recently, just this year, she released The Story of Plastic, which is on the Discovery Channel, and you can see it on Amazon.
Wow. I wonder if I've already seen it. It seems like a very interesting
maybe.
Story of Plastic. Okay.
It sort of tells a different story than most of the things you see about plastic, where they all focus on, you know, like a bottle floating in the ocean and how bad that is. And of course it is, but it's sort of a narrative that keeps us from looking at the bigger systemic issues all the way back to the wellhead. You know, plastic is a fossil fuel product, and it goes back all the way to the extraction of oil and natural gas, and it hurts people in every step along the way, not just once it reaches the ocean. So it's a very in-depth movie.
Dea Schlossberg?
Yeah.
Okay, so I found it, 2019, a documentary, and it is available on Sling TV for premium subscription right now.
Yeah, also Amazon and Discovery should have it. All
right, very good. So, so that I think is a very bonding thing, to bond over your moral principles and your beliefs, which is why I'm always saying, yeah, I'm dating exclusively Yang right now. It has to be UBI or bust. So, Conrad, you created something called the UBI calculator, which is still functioning right now, and we can take a look at it together, right? I think everybody would recognize this from the Yang Gang, but there may be some people who have not seen it yet. So let me do a quick share, and you can tell us about how it works. Yeah, and we can maybe do an example or something.
Yeah. Right? Basically, I designed this to put the math in the hands of the people, so you don't have to like take anyone's word for it, listen to pundits on what we can afford in the economy. So basically, I designed this calculator to be a calculator that analyzes the effects of a basic income of various different proposals, including Andrew Yang's, one that Scott Stanton submitted. There's 6 or 7 other ones up there that are just basic proposals to show different ways we could fund UBI, the different effects on the national income distribution. But yeah, so let's just go through an example. If you go to the green calculator on the left,
I'm ready. Okay.
Pick an income that the household is making. Just drag that little scroll bar or enter it in.
This is per year.
Yeah, annual income.
Okay. Wow, this is way too high. So we pick a medium. Let's go 36,000.
Okay, is this an individual or a family?
I'm going to say it's let's see, one adult with one child. No, that's not the average. Let's do an average household. How's that?
Sure. Okay. And are they getting any government assistance?
At 36,000, do you think they would be receiving some?
They might be getting a little. I don't exactly know where it would be panning out. I think they wouldn't be getting a lot, but let's just throw some in there.
I would say snap a small amount, if anything.
Yeah, if it's monthly, 60. Let's just put in 200 a month or 300.
I put 200 because I don't think they give out very much SNAP for low income. Actually, once you have any income,
where you live too,
any amount of income reduces your SNAP, so you can't get the maximum. That's all right.
Okay. and then
do I need to do anything else?
Well,
okay.
if you scroll down, you can see
Wow.
the different plans that are up there, and they automatically resort based on. Right now, they're filtered to be what, in order of what gives you the largest increase in income for that family.
So this says an increase by. So this is, oops, I clicked on it. I got to a Max Angus UBI plan.
Yeah, you can click on the X and go back to the main list for now.
Okay, let me go back so we can look at all the other ones. Okay.
So
here's
and then
one.
on the green calculator, hit the enter your household size to go back so we can see the parameters of this family.
Okay, where are we going? Enter your household
at the bottom of the green
size?
calculator.
Okay.
All right. So now we're looking at a family with 2 adults and 2 kids.
Okay.
They have a household income of $36,000, and they get government assistance of $2,400 a year. And so what you're seeing is on the right, you're seeing a list in order of descending net income change of the different proposals and plans that are in there and how they would shake out for this particular family. So yeah. So if you scroll down, you can find Andrew Yang's plan. There's a couple these, and they all have different parameters. So if you want to look at Yang, since this is a Yang thing, let's look at Yang's plan.
Andrew Yang's UBI plan.
So you can see that on the net, this family would be receiving $15,700 more than they.
User error.
Are you just going around clicking everything? I
mean, I can't blame you. There's so much information on this site. It's like, oh, let me check this out. I want to see the details. Let me hover over this. There's so much good information here.
Yeah. So this is just the main card, and you can see that this family. This is just the snapshot. So they'd be getting about $16,000 net benefit.
I like how it breaks down. Let's slow it down here. We've got here $24,000 per year. Okay, is your UBI. It's being issued to you, but it would cost you some amount in taxes.
Yeah, that's factoring in the VAT tax. And all of my calculations for this were meant to be as hard on these plans as possible. I did conservative calculations. So what I would expect from the tax data that we used from, it was 2019 tax data for the most part, is that the most that this family would be losing would be $8,231. And these are all estimates, but I wanted them to be as hard on the plans as possible.
And so I like how then you explain that 93% of household incomes of all U.S. citizens would increase. This would be the same no matter what you chose over here, right? Because it's specific to Andrew Yang's plan.
Yeah, and so those numbers are based, that's just the national. So this calculator breaks things down into what are the effects on the family and what are the effects on the national economy. So the 15,000 is a family thing.
And it also tells you about how the funding is done, and it tells you the deficit spending. If I click view details, do I get more information?
You get a lot more.
Okay, so you have little bar charts here.
So hover on those bar charts for a second. One thing you can do is at any time you want, you can adjust the parameters. So go over to the calculator and maybe drag the scroll bar to 50,000. And you can watch it change in real time and see.
It's happening right now. Now, what if I drag it to the 1% up here?
Eventually, with all these plans, you'll start losing money. So one thing about Andrew Yang's plan that you can see from this calculator compared to the other ones is that it generally tends to net benefit a quite large percentage of the population, at 93%. One of the things this calculator shows is that you can easily design a plan that would benefit 70% plus, and then it becomes the choices that you make, whether they're more progressive or regressive in nature on their own.
And this proves that it's more progressive as you go to the lower, because as you go to the lower income, right, you only see increase, you never see decreasing. It slowly decreases as you go over this direction.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think the calculator can show people if they want to take the time to look at it, is that a tax that's what's called regressive in nature which means that it proportionally hurts those with less income or wealth. When the revenue from those taxes is used to fund a UBI, a regressive tax becomes progressive. So a lot of complaints that you'll get about a regressive tax, like the VAT tax, which Andrews Yang is mostly formulated around, or even a flat tax, which by itself is sort of unconscionable. If you take that revenue and just put it towards some government program like a fighter jet or something, then yes, a regressive tax is effectively burdening the poor more than the rich, percentage-wise. But if you fund a basic income, all you're really doing is taking the money and giving it back to everyone, and the net benefit to the lower classes is greater proportionally. So UBI is actually a way to take regressive taxes that we want. There are good reasons for those sorts of taxes if you can make them progressive. Like a carbon tax is in effect regressive because it hurts the poor who can barely afford their gas or their electric for the week or the month, and it takes the money from that and gives it back to them. So those who are consuming less are actually benefited with a check, and those over a break-even point who have large houses to heat and do a lot of airplane travel or whatever end up footing the bill, which is what you saw in France with the yellow vests was largely because they tried to implement a carbon tax, but they left it in a regressive manner. So it was then effectively, trying to fight climate change on the backs of the poor, which is not the right way to do it. And they deserve the yellow vests that they got in the street, if you ask me.
All right. So this shows an income. So 93% of U.S. citizens would be receiving more than they're paying out. And then here you've got the income distribution curve, which shows that everyone is gaining money up until very, very end here. And for the poorest, they're actually getting a higher percentage change in their disposable income.
Right.
Which
one
is
thing that's kind of cool.
Actually progressive.
Yeah, and this breaks down the funding mechanism. It was definitely very hard on them. It was like, with every politician and every campaign, you'll see a little bit of hand waving as to what you can expect when it comes to economic stuff, because a lot of the economic projections are speculative, and people will take a more generous estimate whenever they can. So I always took the least generous estimate. So in terms of, what I'm referring to here is the estimate of how much of a windfall might we get. I didn't include that at all, right? One of the things Andrew Yang's website would argue for is that a lot of the UBI would pay itself back with reduced crime and reduced hospitalization and a boosted economy. And that's a very valid argument, and it's there in his blurb. Every plan proposer got to put a blurb in to explain why they had a certain amount of deficit spending or why they funded it a certain way. So that 1.5 trillion in deficit spending would be largely offset, arguably, by the windfalls we would experience as a society. But I did not see it as the job of the calculator to make those speculations.
Sure. And you've got here a way to embed this code. So you're just being very open about this. People can use it if they want to.
Yeah, you can put a widget on your site. So if you want...
They just go here, just click copy the code, right? Copy the code, and there it goes. You just put it on your website. Yeah,
you can put this. It would be a small widget of Andrew Yang's plan in particular. So you can direct people to your own page, and they can just see how they do. The other cool thing is that if you scroll up to the bars of the income, down slightly, there it is, right there. You see the little Facebook and Twitter things. You can share your results if you're comfortable doing it. The original idea I had was to try to get a version of this on Yang's page. So either here or in just the snapshot, you can share what your results were and encourage other people to use the calculator and see what their results would be. The idea being that if it was someone like Yang or Santins or whoever was running on a platform of UBI with a certain proposal, they could drive a lot of traffic to it and have people just look at even the main snapshot page and be like, oh, looks like I'm making money out of this. I support this. Maybe I'll tell my friends. And they could spread the awareness that way.
Well, I am. I love your calculator, Hexel. Do you think that might be something useful for your website?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was really smart for you to include an embed. I mean, how long did it take you to put from conception to a realization? How long did it take?
Like a year and a half. I had to raise quite a bit of money too, and find some find a good group of coders. But yeah, I mean, there's more ambitions I have for growing it and making it more, having more plans on there, having it so that people can input their own without reaching out to me to set up a plan on there.
Right. I mean, I find this extremely fascinating because I've had, I mean, you know, campaigning for Yang all this time. I think I've had this conversation a lot of times where a lot of times the people who had the hardest time getting it were people who were already kind of doubled down on government spending, welfare spending as the solution. You know, and I'm not against welfare spending personally, but a lot of people could not, because the solution itself was so new to them, then they could only think about it in the abstract. And I think what this does is, whether you're someone on the left or on the right, it puts it, the old adage, the numbers don't lie. And it gives you something tangible to show them, like, okay, you're making this, getting this much in benefits, or you're making this amount of income. This is how it would play out. And I think this is an extremely useful tool for anyone who's having a conversation with anyone who says, I think a basic income would hurt me, because this puts it as plain as day as it can be. And I think I think I'm not alone when I say I've tried to have conversations where I verbally try to present the numbers that your calculator spits out. But I think this is such a great asset for the concept of show, don't tell, right?
Yeah.
I could tell you it will improve your life, or improve your household income, or I could show it to you and pull up the website.
So we have a few questions from our viewers, and here's one from Anthony Diaz.
Audience.
It's a common question. Yeah.
Would a UBI raise the price of everything? A soda would go up to $5. Is that true?
There's a few different ways to look at this. I think things might find a bit of a new equilibrium, because the way the market prices things right now is not very, it's not a really great functioning market. But the premises of capitalism and competition would remain the same. So if you're talking about a soda being $5, what's to stop, someone from some store next to the store charging $5 from still charging, 50 cents or $1? They still have a margin of profit, right? So there's still competition in the market, and you're just allowing more people to have access to it, right?
Yeah.
So these people would be undercut if they tried to just assume all of the windfall for themselves. Now, the example of a soda or an apple or something like that is easier, because you can tie it to the cost of procurement, and there's a pretty robust system of competition. People also worry about housing, and like, what will landlords eat up all the money that's out there? Just raise everyone's rent $1,000 a month. And there's a few reasons to think that couldn't happen. One is that UBI basically gives people the opportunity to have far more options. People could pool together and get houses. People in large quantities, I think people would move out of cities, or be less likely to move into cities, the big cities, because a lot of people, and as someone who's lived in New York City for over a decade, a lot of people move to a city like that because of the opportunity to make money, not necessarily because they have this huge, strong passion to be there. Some do, but some people would just as well like to stay in, their middle America, smaller town with their family, start a business. It's just not really feasible for them to try to start a business where there's no potential marketplace. But what happens when your opportunity follows you, and wherever you try to start a business or get a job, there's a whole market there, because the entire population is getting extra money. I think we see a reduction in the dwindling of middle American cities and the disintegration of their economies as it all kind of hyper capitalizes towards the large cities. And we get more of an equilibrium state where people are like, yeah, I want to live in a medium-sized city or a small-sized city, rather than just these mega metropolises, and then everything else is kind of gradually dying, you know? So I would see rents in large cities, the pressure would start to come down as the overcrowding would start to come down. But again, this is all speculation. And to think that we can just put in UBI and not do anything else is naive. And no one really suggests that we shouldn't also continue to be smart about, you know, housing regulation and rent control and things like that, where it crops up as necessary. UBI to me is just a platform that makes a lot of these things easier to start off on a fair playing field.
Right. Can I add to his answer? I mean, I feel like he pretty much covered it. And like, there's kind of two approaches I have to this question. One is one I just like my stump answer, you know, talking like canvassing and phone banking and going to groups, kind of answering this question. And since Conrad's answer pretty much covered it, I'll just touch on that briefly. But there's another aspect to this that I wouldn't say on the campaign because it's a little more confrontational, I suppose. But I can say now that we're not in campaign mode, or at least not for Andrew. So the first thing is like the reason that you probably won't see like a $5 soda is the same reason you don't see a $5 soda now. Or if you do, you see it for, you know, other reasons. Supply and demand, right? Does the supply of soda change if everyone, or not even everyone, like most people had $1,000 a month? It probably doesn't have a huge effect on that. If the demand went up, then that's a good problem, right? Because if $1,000 made the demand for soda go up, yeah, the price would go up, but again, the demand went up. And it's the same reason why, you know, if you really think about why things are priced the way that they're priced, it's not based on how much money you have. It's based on how much money you're willing to spend and who can spend it. And having an extra $1,000 really doesn't change that. And so you can go into more complex answers, as Conrad already did, about specifically health, specifically land, specifically education. There's so many factors that affect the pricing of it, but it doesn't really come down to how much you have, because if it was based on how much people had, then not affording it wouldn't be the problem, right? We wouldn't have a problem affording living if the cost of living was based on what people could afford. So that's the first thing, and everything else Conrad said. The other side of this too that I wanted to say in the campaign, but obviously is kind of confrontational, is that I think when a lot of people complain about things getting marginally more expensive, they're not, whether they realize it or not, like, so I don't hold it against them, but whether they realize it or not, they're not really speaking in defense of affordability. They're not really speaking on the defense of even capitalism, for that matter. They're really speaking on the defense of consumerism, right? Like if you think about why is your new smartphone cheap? Well, it's because it's made in a sweatshop in, you know, across the ocean for someone paid like very little money. And so a lot of the reasons that things are so cheap and so, you know, so affordable in the first place is because of these other inhumane things that make them so cheap. And so I think, you know, when we think about like when we're trying to move humanity forward and like put people's well-being before profits, like as long as things are like our basic needs and even the things like luxuries that we still want are still within reach, in fact, more in reach, because again, you have $1,000, then it's like, who cares if you have to pay a little bit more for the product of someone's time and the product of someone's labor? And so I think a lot of times we have to ask ourselves, are we sensitive about paying a little bit more because it means less people will have it? Or are we sensitive about it because of our consumerism? And as a guy who like drinks like overpriced Starbucks coffee, like I'm not speaking from an ivory tower. I just own it. Like I realize it. It's consumerism. It's not about, you know, well-being or affordability. It's if I paid $5 for, if I have to pay $5 for a burger that I didn't need, it's ultimately unhealthy for me. then who cares if I have to pay an extra dollar for it? I mean, that's just ultimately, if that's the cost of a better society where people have a roof over their head, then I'll gladly pay the extra dollar.
Yeah, well, one way I like to think about it,
so I can actually
too.
see. I can actually see like the price of soda going up a little bit, maybe, but only in the sense that we wouldn't be subsidizing sugar and soda and candy and things like that with the SNAP program that we have now. A surprising number of people are spending their money on things that that can, not be all that healthy for us, and yet the government is willing to pay for that. When you give people the chance to spend their money any way that they want to, I might be surprised if soda consumption actually goes up. I think it would actually go down because now you have choices of all different types of things. So I think people actually would choose things that are healthier for them. And so I don't foresee the demand for soda going up and then all of a sudden it becoming so rare that it's going to be $5 a bottle. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, I would add to that. I think a lot of the things we talk about in society from more of a moralistic standpoint comes back to that sort of ivory tower thing you were mentioning, Hexel, where you'll see like the very wealthy 1%ers or whatever talking about how they're living minimalist and look at my house on Instagram and how few things I have, and here's this $3,000 Gucci lounge chair, and that's the only thing in here. And then whatever, it's like, well, good for you. Or I don't eat unhealthy food because I care about my body. It's like, or you have the ability to afford Whole Foods and soda and chips.
Or, Batman's lobster thermidor.
Yeah. So one of the things I think UBI lets us do as a society is it brings access to making those more idealistic choices that people would want to make, and it gives more people that access. Like, do I want to join a gym? Well, now I have a certain amount of income coming in that I can potentially put in that direction. Do I want to drink less soda and spend a little more money on, almond milk or whatever it is? Then a lot more people have that opportunity to make that choice. Do I want to buy a pair of jeans that's going to last for 10 years rather than something for $10 around the corner made in a sweatshop? So it's when we shame people for buying clothes from a company that was built in a sweatshop, we're shaming the wrong people. We're shaming. It's poverty shaming, and it's like you put someone in a position where they can't afford to buy a nice set of silverware that'll last them forever, and they have to stock up on the little plastic forks and spoons and knives that they get at the fast food place. They're actually forced in that position where they can't make those choices honestly. So UBI allows us to all kind of have a little bit more of that privilege of saying, how do I invest in something that's actually better for me in the long term?
Right, absolutely. I mean, you hit on the head. Like we're blaming the wrong people when we look at like all of the bad choices on the macro scale. You can't. You can only blame the participants of that macro effect. So far, you have to look at like what's driving those incentives to go that way. Like if you can't afford more ethical options, then it's like, is it unethical? Is it more ethical to, buy cheap sweatshop clothes, or is it more ethical to not put clothes on your kids, right? Or to not provide for your family? And sometimes, we live in a society where doing one good thing comes at the cost of another bad thing. And so UBI and a mindset of people over profit allows us to make those decisions.
So Annette, did you have anything you wanted to add to our conversation?
No, I'm agreeing with everything that you guys are saying. So like I am a very low income person, and we just live off of my Social Security disability, SSDI. And my husband is my unpaid caregiver. We're like kind of like the poster family for how UBI would impact our family. And we own a 5-acre ranch in Arizona, and we also care for my 73-year-old mother, who lives on the property here with us. But this room that I'm sitting in right now is the only room in the entire house that does not require some sort of major repair. And so like mom and I both get our Social Security and we pay our bills and we do what we need to do. And we are not frivolous at all. Okay. Not even a little. And I feel like no matter what I do, there's always somebody judging me like, oh, why did you buy that one thing? Well, because I need it, you know, like we don't buy anything we don't need. Like we got judged because somebody paid and took us on vacation to Mexico because we live like 2 hours away from Rocky Point, Mexico. And but we got judged for going on vacation. So that like poverty shaming is real, man. Like that really hit home for me. That it's absolutely true. Like we got like in trouble because somebody else paid for our vacation, and we went and had fun for 48 hours.
Yeah, it reminds me. So we're in our Bootstraps project. We're following people that have been receiving basic income for a couple of years. There's one example that's really strong in my mind of that, where we have a homeless man who, when we started, you know, we filmed with him during his day, and in between being outside for 12 hours collecting bottles and cans in the snow, he went into a liquor shop and got a beer for $1. And someone said, "Do you want to share that? He shouldn't be doing that with his money. We don't want to give the wrong idea." And my basic response was, well, can I curse on this show? Who the heck are you? I'll do that. I'll pull an Andrew Yang.
Short answer.
I'll be like Andrew Yang, and I'll say both heck and fuck in different sentences and not know just the difference. So, and they were like, "Do you want to show that?" And, you know, it's like, you know, do we want people spending money on a drink or something if they're poor? And it's like, do you have a glass of wine with dinner, for one? And do you, I mean, this is a person who's getting through 12 hours outside. You're going to begrudge him $1 towards something like that? And it just leads to this larger sort of social ethic in this country that if you're poor, you shouldn't have any self-care or fun or anything until you're not poor. And the truth is, people are poor for their entire lives in this country. We built a trap they can't get out of. And then we expect them to never enjoy a single moment of their lives. Oh, what, you got your nails done? For some people, that's a very big thing that makes them feel better about themselves for their interview or in life or for a date. Oh, you know, you got a haircut that was $10 more than the cheapest possible one, or doing it yourself. Like, you went to see a movie one time. It's like, right. We actually, without really realizing it, a lot of people expect people to live lives of just servitude and suffering until some point in which they prove themselves worthy by having enough money. And it's pretty brutal. It's a pretty harsh environment where we don't actually see each other and see how beneficial just even those small things mean so much to people.
Right. Yeah, it's like the inverse of, you know, it's like the inverse of the Spider-Man philosophy. Like, with great power comes great responsibility. We put greater responsibility on the people with less means than, like you said, like if when we were on the campaign and talking about UBI, both from the left and the right, I would always get this, like, well, what if they spend that money on booze and drugs, right? Like on alcohol and drugs. And I'm like, dude, you have
people do that already.
Yeah, you have a weed shirt on. We're having this conversation at a bar. Like, suddenly, yeah, like literally, like we're in a bar and you're worried about them spending money on alcohol. And so, like, there's things that rich people spend money on booze and alcohol and drugs, right? And on greater quantities than someone would if they got $20. And so there's greater pressure to fit a specific behavior when you're poor than if you are someone of greater means. Like, no one would bat an eye if I spent $5 on coffee, but if you gave someone a few dollars and they spend it on something that made them happy for a little bit, then suddenly that's like tears down the whole thing. So yeah,
we have a friend who is watching right now, and she might be joining us. We'll see. Her name is Charid, and she's saying that she would like to find a way to submit her plan to your website for the calculator. So hopefully you can give her some way to contact you. Would that be on Twitter? What do you think?
ubicalculator@gmail.com. Just email me. And the calculator may or may not have the capability at this time for whatever your preferred funding mechanisms are, but we can talk about it.
Right. That actually brings up another question.
So you're still adding new plans?
I could if I wanted to. But yeah, there's only a certain number of funding mechanisms we have built into the guts of the calculator right now. So it may or may not, it may or may not be able to.
Yeah, because I would imagine, because I'm a software developer guy myself, and I would imagine if there were, if someone had a new mechanism that hasn't been thought of yet, or at least not related to UBI already, then your team would probably have to custom code like, oh, we're going to create a tax on that works in this specific way on this specific industry. Then you'd have to code that custom. But I was curious though so there are more than just Yang's policy proposals on your UBI calculator. Broadly speaking, who are the other, there's obviously Scott Santon's. I mean, that's an obvious one. But the other proposals, where did they come from? Were they like Shaw, where they're like, hey, I have an idea, put it on your website? Or did you go out and find these great ideas?
There's a little bit of this and that. There were a few people I wanted to bring in different perspectives just to show. This is by no means like an all-encompassing set of policy proposals, but I wanted to invite some people to just kind of put their plans in action. And I even picked people where we've had disagreements in the past. And it's like, I just want you to put your idea forward and have it analyzed and we can work on it together. And it was a really nice way to bring people together and start getting on the same page about what the actual math looks like behind these policies. And then several of them, you can see they don't have the name of a policy maker. That was me kind of throwing together a sample of something like a carbon tax. What if we only did, there's one that's, what if we only did like a $50 per metric ton carbon tax? How much would that fund? How progressive or regressive would it be? And basically you could give every adult $100 a month with a $50 per ton carbon tax, right? And that I would argue would be a way to get it done, to get a system of UBI and a dividend in place that's maybe not a full, I would call it a UI, not a UBI, because it doesn't meet basic expenses. But you could start getting checks out to people. It would be the excuse to put the framework in place that everyone has, either like a bank account with the Fed was one person's idea, or a bank account with postal banking. Get this whole country banked on in some sort of way, so that, and getting $100 a month or whatever it is. And then if you imagine what that would mean is, one, we could build on that and build out a UBI as people like it. We could find more and more ways to fund it and grow it. And then if we got hit by something like a pandemic, we wouldn't have to wait 3 months for them to get their asses in gear and decide to give us $1,200 or whatever. They could literally do it the next day. They could drop it in our accounts the next day. Everyone would already be signed up, and we would be 100 times more prepared in the case of something like this. It would be an infrastructure that we had already built.
So I asked Annette to share this with us because it sounds like you are in the middle of working on this docu-series right now. Is your wife involved in making this together with you? Or?
Yeah, she's a director, and I helped produce. My main role was more, so we had a sort of a firewall between us because I'm a pretty staunch UBI advocate, and she's more of a journalistic director. So I designed a universal basic income trial and fundraised for it. And so I'm the UBI trial manager. I help produce here and there. I drive to the shoots sometimes, but mostly I helped design a basic income trial for 2 years that got extended to 2.5 years for 21 Americans all over the country, different walks of life, homeless to solidly middle class, different backgrounds, ethnicities, whatever. And they were getting $1,000 a month per adult and $333 per child for that entire time. It was, we actually did it weekly. So the equivalent of $1,000 a month would come out every Wednesday. And we just followed their stories to see how they would spend it, what they would do with it. And these two projects together kind of were our responses to the main two questions that come up with UBI. One is the numbers, like how can we pay for it? Would it be just costing me money in taxes? And that's what the calculator is for, just to see the truth on that really quickly. And Bootstraps is about actually seeing each other and understanding how do human beings actually spend money when you give them income security. Do they spend it wisely? Does it have that big of an impact at that level? Yeah, so that was our approach.
When do you think this your docuseries will start coming out so people can sign up on this website, right? It's called bootstrapstv.com with the S in there, Bootstraps TV. And you can put your name and email in here, and you will get notified when this docuseries is done.
Yeah, so I do a newsletter about once a month, and right now the website is more of a placeholder, and I'll keep updating people when things go on in the movement or things go on in the project, and definitely when the series is going to come out or we find out where it's going to live. Right now, in terms of progress, we're currently in the middle of our final road trip, getting exit interviews. So as of September, almost everyone will be completely done with their trial, except for a couple of people who finish in October or November. But the checks have been going for 2.5 years. And we've seen people in the 2 years before coronavirus and the 6 months so far of coronavirus receiving a basic income. And we've filmed all of it. So right now we're pretty heavy into the post-production, and we'll be looking in the next few months for distributors and partners and seeing where it's going to live. And we don't know how many episodes there will be yet. A lot of it depends on who we work with, but maybe 6 to 12, somewhere in there, depending on how much of these stories we show. There's just hundreds of hours of footage, so there's plenty of material to make something endlessly long, but we'll make it as long as it needs to be to give an honest portrayal of what happened, the good and the bad. This isn't really meant to be an advocacy piece. It's more of a research piece.
So do you actually sell the finished product once it's all done? Because then at that point you would know how many episodes, or do you negotiate that with a buyer? Or, how do you do this?
Yeah, it's tricky with a series because it's a very expensive thing. When we originally thought we were going to do maybe a feature film and take of the 11 stories, we're going to take maybe the 3 most compelling and squeeze them into an hour and a half to 2 hours. But there was just too much content, and so it turned into a series. The budget grew quite a lot for the production, and it's the sort of thing where the process is for us at this point. Put together a good pilot, get a bunch of materials together for what the series could look like, and bring it to and see where it ends up, see who partners with us, and see where it goes, and then get the rest of the money in and finish the project.
So you do that concurrently. You're actually shopping the project to different people who might pick it up, different corporations or things like that, right?
Yeah, we will be. We're preparing for that phase. So yeah.
Okay, and you started writing about the basic income. I see that on Medium, your first article on there that I saw was from March of 2017. And you had mentioned at that time, did you know that Andrew Yang was running on on this policy? Right.
I knew before he ever ran or announced, because we interviewed him in our apartment. He came and we interviewed him as one of the experts during our research phase. And he did the whole,
wow.
By the way, I'm running for president. And we're like, of what, and he's been a friend since before he was, famous. But yeah, what he's doing is really cool. And it really relates to the last article I wrote of how we actually got where we are, what it takes to create a movement, and how it has to be grassroots. And Andrew Yang, before he came along, Day and I were like, this UBI movement is too nerdy, too wonky, and with a little bit of sexy tech bro mixed in, and it's missing all the human rights and the progressive just humanism that is there, and it needs to grow as like a grassroots movement. And so we set out to create the grassroots.
How can that be, considering that that was how Martin Luther King came to it?
We forgot, you know, I mean,
wow.
After Martin Luther King was killed and UBI failed in the Senate it failed in the Senate. It passed the House under Nixon. It basically kind of disappeared out of the national awareness until it was, I mean, there was a hardcore cadre of devoted academics and philosophers that were keeping it alive, but it didn't come back around again until, you know, automation fears sort of started making it sexy, and people like Scott Santins, and we all started kind of filtering in and realizing this has to be a thing again. And so Day and I came in thinking, okay, we have to bring the grassroots, because Day has had a lot of connections in that with that kind of stuff in the environmental world. And Andrew comes along and accomplishes like goals 1, 2, and 3, and becomes just the power horse of the grassroots side of the UBI world. So he's taken this way beyond where we were hoping to, and we've been adapting as we go. It's like, okay, what's our role here? You know, in terms of helping UBI become a thing people are aware of in a very organic and grassroots way.
Well, I feel like Yang Gang hasn't done the best job in partnering with old groups that have been around for much longer and that are, you know, have excellent networks of their own, you know, that they built before we showed up on the scene. In your very first article, you referenced the Basic Income Earth Network. Were they? Was this a group that is worth all of Yang Gang to pile on and learn more about and
yeah,
and support
I mean,
right now?
They've been doing great work for a long time, and there's some of the people there, Guy Standing and Carl Weiderquist, and they're the old guard of the UBI movement, and they know absolutely everything about it, you know. And Carl was instrumental in introducing us to everyone in the movement and getting us going. And Guy Standing has just been a powerhouse in Europe and working with the trials in India and all kinds of stuff. So these people really set the groundwork and the knowledge for the movement to take off as it's going. And that's where, you know, Rutger Bregman got inspired by some of the work they were doing, as far as I understand it. And then comes Andrew Yang and reads Rutger's book and sees his TED Talk.
And we've heard his TED Talks, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And this all comes from
I don't mean to...
decades of hard work.
I just got all excited, you know. I recognize the name. Hooray. So
it's a great TED Talk.
But is it like Basic Income Earth Network seems to have a more global sort of focus? I mean, they are talking to people in Brazil, they're talking to people in Kenya, they're talking to people everywhere, right? So is that something that's useful for us to participate in, or is it like we really need to just focus on our domestic issues right now?
I mean, I think it's to each his own. We've got lots of people in the movement, and whatever is more your calling, you can put your energy into, and we can still support each other. Basic Income Earth Network started out as Basic Income European Network, and they expanded their territory of interest. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in, like, how can basic income be instrumental in foreign aid or helping developing countries or in all that. And for me, I decided to focus on the United States. I feel much more comfortable in that area. And, you know, my take is any one country that implements a well-conceived UBI as the starting ground for UBI and human civilization, it will stay there. It will never go away. It will create a precedent, and it will spread like a virus. So I can support all these things going on. Give Directly is doing amazing work in Africa, and BN, Basic Income Earth Network, is doing amazing work, and UBI works in Canada, and there's people doing great stuff everywhere that I support. For me, I'm putting my energy into American possibilities. But whatever calls to you, we have enough people that just get involved somewhere. Don't feel like there's any specific way you have to do it, whether it's, you know, Humanity Forward Texas or something more global. You know, just be a voice in the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like
you said it. Oh yeah, because I was going to say, like, a lot of times people, you know, people have different talents and abilities and general interest of scope. So there's going to be people who are like, let me jump straight into the global movement and act, you know, work and volunteer at the global level. Or some people at the state level, and some people are like, just let me make a dent in my community, because every, you know, level of it makes a big difference, because you need those people at like the national level putting forward national level policies like Andrew Yang, but you also need people in your neighborhood. I mean, that's what happened in Iowa. It just came down to the people, you know, who told their friends and told their neighbors about, you know, what this is about, and got their nearest, you know, proximal person to get on board with what this is. So yeah, at every level their help is needed, and it doesn't matter whether it's your neighbor or, you know, a president or just Earth Network. There's every stage of it needs to be hit.
Yeah, I've
well, the
considered...
thing is, I remember a lot of people saying that all politics is local, and so this seems like something that requires some political action. But yet, I feel that at the international level, you know, having this growing awareness throughout the entire world is really powerful. So, yeah, it's interesting. Like, where should we really put our attention? Should we like maybe go to that after our elections are over? You know, like there's a sort of a timing thing. Maybe we can focus more on that after we get our own elections taken care of. I don't know.
And I think it needs to be able to find its way organically as well. You were talking before, Faye, about my latest article is how to build a movement in record time. And it was the idea was, how did UBI get to where it is, and how do we keep it growing? And it sort of points to everyone has a role to play. Everyone has somewhere that they can contribute, whether it's donation or vocal support and sharing, or whether you have the ability to commit your time fully to this, like I have, right? And for me personally, I want to see the approach go at all different levels. I can see supporting, I can see myself donating to something going on in Kenya, which I have. I can see myself pushing these national policy, like federal policy level things with the work I'm doing, but I can also see myself running for and or supporting a candidate locally and trying to get like some small dividend program in place in some county or city, and creating the precedents and the examples at every level.
Yeah, I was interested in your latest article because I thought it would be like the most, you know, like the most relevant at this exact moment. And the name of your article is How to Build a Movement in Record Time, the Role of Alternative Media in UBI's Grassroots Explosion. Wow, I feel like you just referenced us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the podcast culture did as much for the UBI movement as anything else. It brought Andrew Yang to popularity. It brought a lot of people into the discussion and made them feel involved. It's absolutely crucial. And if you read that article, you'll see it's like, I was originally invited to write a chapter for a book called about the role of media in the UBI movement. And when people hear media, often they think of CNN and Fox and MSNBC and things like that. And basically I was cataloging how through the history of progressive movements that you cannot wait for the mainstream media to get anything done. You have to force it on them, and it has to be done with alternative media like social media, independent journalists, artists, musicians, and stunts. Honestly, spectacle. You got to do big things like they did in Switzerland, and all the different people pushing.
Wait, what did they do in Switzerland? I want to hear about it.
Switzerland had a referendum in like 2013 or 14 or 15 or something like that. But this is right when UBI was starting to get a little sexy in certain circles of tech and stuff. But Switzerland, there was the Europeans, the Basic Income European Network, which was what it was then, and Grundeinkommen in Germany and different organizations were pushing already a little bit. And so it got on a ballot in Switzerland where the way they do new policies by referendum, they just ask everyone to vote on a policy, and it works or it doesn't. It's not as fraught with parliamentary or the way we do legislation here. And so if you get I think it's a simple majority, but I'm not sure. But the point was they were putting it to the people at a time when most people weren't aware of it at all. And the reason their movement was so successful, they called it a failure because it didn't pass. Certain people did, but it got from 0% awareness to 25% support in a year or so. And this was with the Swiss government actively coming out and saying, we don't think you should vote for this. A quarter of the country still voted for it, and it's going to come back in the next decade or so, and it'll probably pass in Switzerland. And what they did was beautiful, and there was a group of filmmakers and artists that were dreaming up ways to get this in front of the people. One thing they did is they got a dump truck full of coins, like the little penny coins or whatever it was, with 8 million coins in it, one for every single Swiss citizen. They drove up in front of Parliament, in the square in front of Parliament, and they dumped them all in front of the news cameras. And the news got to America. The news
got to the stunt aspect of it.
Yeah, stunt and spectacle. So that was one of the things that was all over the news, was the 8 million coins dumped in front of Parliament. Then they broke a Guinness record by making the world's biggest poster. You can Google that and show that if you want. But
wow.
The world's biggest poster that filled up like the entirety of Berlin Square or something like that with a UBI message. And so then they got in the news again with like all this aerial photography from cameras and local news and then national news and international news. And it was just little stunts by artists that captured people's imagination.
Very cool. I'm going to try to put up this Guinness World Records. All right. Let's try to get this up here for everybody. All right. Is it working?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. This is not the world's biggest screenshot, but here we go. That's pretty interesting there. So I wonder what they made this out of, this poster.
I don't know. You can read the articles about it.
All right. Generation Grundeinkommen, which means Generation Basic Income, just created the largest poster ever in Geneva, Switzerland, measuring a staggering, meters. We're going to have to do feet here. 87,354.84 square feet. All right. And this supersized poster was created in support of implementing a basic income for the country's workers, an issue on which the citizens of Switzerland will be voting on in June this year. Now, I feel like these types of stunts are things we can still do during coronavirus time. I mean, am I missing something here with this? These are things we could do right now.
Well,
that's actually what. I think we might be about to say the same thing.
Income movement.
That's what. Yes, on September 19th is National Basic Income March Day. You know, they had the first one last year, and then in a period where it's called Basic Income March, but people are encouraged to do things, think outside the box in terms of ways they can, do something that's still socially, distant and safe. And what a lot of people are doing is they're choosing to do art installations and art projects where people do murals or do these crowdsourced creations like this. And so I know in Austin, for example, I just reached out to the person who's organizing this in Austin last night. And so they're organizing an art project in Austin, and I'm going to be using, we're going to be using Humanity for Texas to help, give exposure to that. But, around the country on September 19th, in less than a month, around the country, people are going to be doing different art and creative things to bring awareness to this.
Well, and these guys are doing great work too. It's incomemovement.com. And you can go and get on their mailing list. And they're always giving people ways to get active, like it's making it easy to write to your Congress people. Or they had, instead of they did a march last year. Earlier this year, they organized people driving around in cars and honking their horns with signs and stuff like that.
Did you do that with them, Hexel? Did you participate in the car protest?
So we're trying to see what we can pull together for September 19th in Dallas. I can't promise anything just yet, but we're going to see if we can do a car parade in Dallas.
But this is the thrust of all of this is you have to force the eyes of the establishment media and establishment politics onto these things, and they don't really see anything unless it attracts a lot of attention, and they have to. Like Standing Rock. Standing Rock was going on for months before they actually went out there, and we saw it in the mainstream media, and Obama talked about it. And what it took was an independent reporter. What's her name? Democracy Now! Her name's escaping me.
Amy Goodman.
Yeah, Amy Goodman.
Amy Goodman.
Amy Goodman went out there and risked herself and eventually got charged with crimes, like bogus crimes. But she filmed, these mercenaries with their dogs that were chomping on protesters, and everyone was outraged. And all of a sudden, CNN had to cover it, but they knew damn well it was going on the whole time, and they just didn't see it as profitable for them to cover it, maybe, or whatever. But they weren't covering it until independent media went out there. Unicorn Riot went out there and was live streaming. And these are the ways that something like Standing Rock became a very big thing when it could have been something we never really heard about.
So I like the how they decided to actually work the poster into bags, rucksacks, and other products, so that it was like recycled. And I like the initials of I'm going back to the Basic Income Earth Network. The initials, make the word good in French, right? Bien. Mm-hmm. Or well. So I think it's wonderful that we have some really good thinkers in these groups here. We're trying to find all kinds of ways to activate people here, and I find that kind of art activity and joint group activity to be very inspiring. And I think during COVID-19, we're all looking for ways other than phone banking, which is absolutely necessary, but still it's like very, it's like everybody's like, is there anything else I can do other than phone banking? Right? So it'd be good if we have some events where kids are involved, where children are invited and it's safe for them. It's not dangerous like protesting. So I think we need to have more creative spirits in here, trying to come up with new ideas during COVID-19.
Well, and what you're doing is creating a community. Phone banking is important, but it's so isolating. It's so demoralizing, and props to anyone who does it. But anything you can do that kind of creates a community that you latch onto, like activism. I learned from seeing the people my wife knew in the environmentalism movement when I got sucked in. She got thrown in jail for being a reporter and covering one of these things. And we were completely supported and loved and taken in by all of her friends from the movement. So these communities that you create when you get behind a cause become your family, and it's immeasurably valuable. And it makes you feel better about yourself. You've got friends all over the country. That's what Yang Gang is. It's a family. And these are the things that last, not just causes and ideas, but families.
Yep. I went to a what are some other networks of people who are working on basic income? For example, I feel that basic income is an integral part of the Poor People's Campaign, and yet I feel like we haven't sufficiently partnered up with them either, and we really should be. I'd like to see more Yang Gang, heading over there and seeing how we can help and how we can learn from them as being,
We've been trying. The Poor People's Campaign has been, I think they were more aligned with the more Bernie-style progressives at the beginning. So while they were reviving Martin Luther King's Poor People's Campaign, they weren't as focused on UBI at the beginning. And one of the things the pandemic has done and the rise of Andrew Yang has has made UBI a much more safe ground for politicians to tread and for people to put their voice behind. So the Poor People's Campaign has become more and more vocal and out about promoting UBI, and I think there is a lot of opportunity for alignment there for people to work together. And I think what they're doing is very smart. Like, they're trying to revive basically the Southern strategy and a more populist, humanist version of a movement where you bring people together around something that unites us all, which is how the economy is basically screwing us, you know?
So I attended one of their events prior to their special Juneteenth event, and it was an art. It was like a collective art creation moment. So we got together on Zoom and we had like an expert come and teach us how to do sidewalk art, you know, and we had different people talking about different, and then we made posters together. And so I think that that's something that's an interesting event that people can do, and it would be very simple and grassroots oriented. Make posters together, or you know, I don't know. I just feel like the creative aspect of what we do is really important in keeping the morale high and keeping us all, you know, centered and together on this. Maybe we can do some of those together, Hexel. Maybe we can like have an art event together in Texas.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's really great for making people feel like they're more than just purse strings being called to again and again to donate. Donating is very important, but people overlook sometimes one of the most powerful things about the Yang Gang. It wasn't just that they managed to raise a lot of money. It's that they raised a lot of time, you know, they raised a lot of passion. So a lot of the Yang Gang were working basically pro bono as graphic designers for the campaign, you know?
Right.
And in the age of in the age of viral media and in social media, that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, and event planning. Hexel was the major planner for our big rally. I think the Houston rally. Yeah.
No, not in Houston, in Dallas.
So, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Dallas, but you know, my words don't come out right.
So, quarantine,
Conrad,
everyone's at home, all the places.
Did you have any calls to action for us?
Calls to action.
I was traveling back and forth a lot. So.
For calls to action, I would encourage people to follow incomemovement.com because they're doing great work and they'll give you a lot of things to get active about on a regular basis. That's basically their whole purpose. I would suggest people to check out the UBI calculator and consider sharing their results on social media. Maybe come up with a hashtag like hashtag #MyFreedomDividend or whatever, or just learn for yourselves. Tell your friends what the math is. You can follow me on Medium as Conrad Shaw. You can follow me all over social media as the UBI guy. And sign up for the Bootstraps newsletter, because I think when that comes out, we're going to need all the help we can, blowing it up as big as we can to spread the message of, you know, of humanity that's really at the heart of universal basic income.
So at the moment, you're traveling the country to visit all of the people who have participated in that Bootstraps, the UBI that you've been giving out. So yeah. When do you think the project will be ending? I mean, what timeline are we looking at?
Well, the official trial, the Basic Income Project side of things, is ending like this month. And in terms of post-production and the edit, it's hard to know what happens when you get into the phase of selling to networks and things. But we're always hoping for next 6 months, year. It really depends. That's why I would say get on the bootstrapstv.com newsletter if you want the updates. But hopefully in the next couple of months we'll have more detailed news. I just can't promise anything right now.
All right. So we're getting pretty close. We're almost like an hour and a half right now. So Hexel, do you have any Okay, any viewers, if you have any, this is like last call for questions or comments for any of the viewers. And then let's give Hexel a chance to plug what he needs to plug, and I'll put his contact info up again.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Faye and Annette, for having me on board. It was a very huge pleasure of mine to be on here alongside Conrad, who had some amazing stuff. Just sitting here listening to everything he's done. He's put in a lot of work on this UBI calculator, and I can see he's doing a lot of work on his documentary. For myself, I'd encourage everyone to check out humanityfortexas.org, sign up for our newsletter, or become a volunteer, because there is a ton of stuff that we need a lot of help with in the next few months. We're trying to get our first Humanity Forward representative out of Texas into Congress, Donna Imam, there on September 1st. There's two big things you can do, whether or not you're in Texas. One, help, donate even a small amount, $5, $10. You can go to DonnaMoneyBomb.com to make a pledge to drop a donation on September 1st. But I realize that there's more ways to help, and some people may or may not be able to do the donation. And so another huge way to support is to go to our website, votefordonna.com, and volunteer to phone bank. This is huge. We just need, with all the support she's getting outside of the Yang Gang, combined with the help that we can provide her, we can get that 2.8% easily. But we need your help. Beyond that, other things to look forward to is the Basic Income March across the nation on September 19th. If you want to be a part of that, and if you want to help organize one in your city, in Texas, or really anywhere, like if you're not in Texas, you can still go to humanityfortexas.org, click volunteer and sign up. And I'd be happy to point you in a direction of your state's, my counterpart in your state, right? But if you live in Texas and you want to do an art installation or even organize a full-on march, then I am working directly with Income Movement to help facilitate that. And so if you want to see something happen in your town or in your community, please go to humanityfortexas.org, click volunteer, put in your name, phone, and email, maybe even some comments about what you want to do, and I will be reaching out to you very soon. And also, if you have ideas for stuff, I'm only one brain. And so if you're sitting in Texas thinking, I want to do something, I have this great idea and I'm ready to lead it, right? Then become a volunteer and hit me up.
Excellent.
All right. That's wonderful. I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys remember another calculator about that would be, it was a calculator for how much you would get for your town, right? If we were to get that $1,000 a month. And I can never remember the name of it. So I just thought I would ask you if anybody could remember.
I probably have it buried somewhere in my bookmarks because I know what you're talking about.
Right? I wish I was better at bookmarking.
I still have that Google Doc with the copy of Yang Gang links.
Oh, yes.
I have that Google Doc. There's, here, hashtag leave no town behind, UBI by zip code. Let's see if it's still up. Hopefully they renewed their, Give Direct, I'll put it in the chat. givedirect.io/yang. That's one of them. I think I used it relatively recently to get.
And it's something that people can, if you can't find it, you can just go to a zip code and look up, just Google population of the zip code and then multiply that by 1,000.
Okay. This is different than the one I saw before, but this is pretty interesting. All right.
Yeah, this one lets you put in your zip code, and I think it provides you a bunch of stats in one place. I remember there was another one that created actual memes you can share based on that data, but I don't know how to find that.
I loved that one, and it had a good name, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, if someone has
I feel like
links. But I'll drop this in here.
If you're a viewer,
Google Doc.
Yes, and if you're a viewer and you remember some other calculators or UBI related tools like this that you would like to share with everybody else who's watching this video, put it in the comments when you get a chance, and that way, you know, it'll be there when people watch the video and they can see it. Very good.
Hexel, do you want me to share this Google Docs in the comments?
You could, like, if anyone is looking for like old links to old resources back from the campaign, then yeah, anyone's welcome to refer to that. It's not mine. I don't take credit for it. Someone else made this.
So Zephyr and I actually did a little stunt of our own, and I think it can be replicated by a lot of people. And one of the stunts that we did during the Yang campaign was we dressed up as Yang bots, and we walked around town. And we talked to people about how the robots were coming for their jobs. And I think that more people could do this. It doesn't have to be Halloween, does it?
Well, the funny thing is, if you go out dressed in a mask and something covering your face, it's a good way to keep yourself safe when you're approaching people. I have my Darth Vader mask there that I use for that purpose.
And it's better if it's not Halloween.
It's even better if it's not Halloween.
Yeah, because then you stand out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. So I want to highly recommend. It was a great time, and Zephyr enjoyed it so much. And so it's like we need to find stuff that the kiddies can get involved in because we have so many activists who have children. All right. Thank you for hosting for us, Annette. You did the usual
very welcome.
beautiful job you always do. And thanks to everybody who joined us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
it was really nice. Yep, you guys are welcome to come back on anytime. Just let us know.
Super sweet to meet you for the first time, Conrad.
Yeah, you too.
Kind of face to face.
Yeah.
Right on, right on. All right, everybody. Well, thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in. You can find us on the Yang Gang Report on Facebook, and this video is also streamed on my YouTube channel because I haven't made a Yang Gang Report one yet, and I'm sorry, but I haven't. Anyway, that is called Annette the Peacemaker.
Annette the Peacemaker from now on. Let's just do that. Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah. So anyway, those are the places, and Faye and I are both on Twitter. Do you want me to? I don't know. Our viewers know where to find us. I'm not going to put the ticker up.
We're good.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. All right. All right. Peace, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you all next time. All right.
Thanks,